Jesus, you're all I need.
Jesus, you're all.
Say, I believe
You're my need.
I believe you are.
You are all I need.
Oh, God, it's not over until you say it's over. Help us never.
Right, good night, good night, good night. Welcome, 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 one and all, to another of our Sunday night health brought to you by the Evesham SDA Church here in the beautiful island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we are on a hot topic tonight: how to reverse fibroids naturally. Now, guys, we have a lot of powerful information ahead. I'm going to do my best to get through most of it. And I believe by the grace of God, we're going to finish everything tonight. If we do not, of course, we'll always continue on the next Evesham Health Sunday night. So don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. Also, I'm going to again leave some spaces at the end for questions, because I know some questions will come up. And it's a lot of information, but we're going to do our best to get through this thing. So let us go ahead and bring up the screens. We're going to be jumping between screens again. So get yourself ready for that. And this is our topic tonight: reversing fibroids naturally. Is going to be a powerful session, guys. So get yourselves ready for that. Now, before we do that, let us, of course, put the disclaimer up. This webinar is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health routine. So we got a lot of stuff here to cover tonight. Plenty ground. And of course, we always like to start off with the background. So we teach from 4 sources. The first is the Bible. The second is the inspired writings. And when we say the inspired writings, we are talking about the inspired writings of Ellen G. White. The third is good science. And the fourth is experience. Our power text: and the Lord said. And by the time you finish with these webinars, you're going to master this text. You're going to memorize this by heart. And the Lord said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. Now, before we continue, I see the chat is now filling up. Persons are jumping on. Just drop in the chat for me where you guys are signing in from. We always like to give you a shout out. And I think I have to give Marlene Lewis. Yes. So I'm here in Trinidad, and I worship at the same church with Sister Lewis yesterday. So good to see you made it on, Sister Marlene Lewis. Great to see you. When I came on tonight, I say I have to give you a special shout out. And that is from the Reservoir Hill Church here in Trinidad and Tobago, Point 14. So I'm coming to you guys today from Point 14 in Trinidad. So for those of you in Trinidad, maybe we can meet up somewhere in the Point 14 area, and we can do some consultations there. We have Sister Sharon, we have Sister Emily Martin, we have my very good friend Donette. Good to have you, Donette. We have Denise, Sarah, Ronella, Verline. Okay, we got quite a lot. Lovely. So I say I have to take some time off to make sure and shout persons out personally, and the persons make special efforts to come on here. So we're gonna shout you guys out. So that being said, let us set the preface now for going into the rest of the session, and let's just bow our heads and invite the presence of the Lord. Dear Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. We want to thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to be here tonight, another Sunday night, where we can go into the health message, Lord, learn about fibroids, learn about your natural remedies to reverse this. And so, Lord, as we go through it, we ask that you may give us the wisdom and, more importantly, the strength that we need to apply it into our everyday life. We ask that you may be with the internet, hold everything together, help the information to be clear, and more importantly, help persons to gain the benefit for which they would have come on for tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, that being said, listen, if you know anyone that is supposed to be on this webinar, don't hesitate. Go ahead and share the link right now on Zoom so that they can jump on, because as I say, we don't want them missing all of this powerful information. So we looked at, of course, our power text again: the causeless shall not come. And the reason I go through these texts is because I want to show you guys that diseases, in this case, fibroids, things don't just happen. They're not just, oh, it's in my genes and so forth. Yes, genes may load the gun, but lifestyle pull the trigger. And if we understand that most diseases can be reversed, then it gives us hope. We don't have to be subjected to being a slave to the drugs and drug medication, of course, with their long list of side effects. Also, it will give us hope knowing that, hey, as long as I can find the cause, then I can reverse it and I can get the healing for which I am looking for. And that just reiterates the point that disease never comes without a cause. Now let's jump right down to this one. Tonight we're looking at fibroids. So let us reverse or change this word disease to fibroids. And it would read something like this. Fibroids is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. Now, that has to ask the question. And tonight, we really have to read the laws of health because as we go into this presentation, you will see how powerful ignoring these laws are can contribute not just to the growth, but the repeated occurrence of fibroids. So they are pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness or temperance, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. And if we want to set this thing up, and again, the reason I'm going back over this, it sounds like I'm repeating, but the reason I'm going over this because you will see as you go into the presentation that there had to be a chain of events that set up for where this fibroids would start to explode. All right, so let's put where we see diseases, that's going to be fibroids. Now, according to the working definition we have, that came there because the system was free in itself. And I think as we get into slide number 3, we'll see exactly why the system was free in itself. Now, why was the system free in itself? Because there were certain conditions that came in the system. And so, those conditions only came about because there was a violation of the laws of health. So it means, in retrospect, if we were to stop the violation of the laws of health, then we can safely say that these conditions will go away. The system will have no need to free itself, and then fibroids will disappear. Right? So now that we have that in place, I'm going to jump over here now to my other slide, and this is brought to us by the natural healing through the laws of health. And this is where I did my medical missionary certification course. You have been so kind to lend me the slide for tonight. Right? So we're looking at fibroids. Now, fibroids is actually not a new disease. In fact, it is one of the diseases that was recorded in the Bible. And if you go to that text, Mark chapter 5, verse 25 to 34, you're going to see it. And a certain woman, which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. When she had heard of Jesus, came in and pressed behind, and touched his garment. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be made whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press and said, who touched my clothes? And his disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me? And he looked round about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell before him, and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace, and be thou whole of thy plague. Now, this is actually the first recorded instance of fibroids, because how do we know it's fibroids is not like a regular menstrual cycle? Well, if you look here, it says that she was healed of that plague. Now, a regular menstrual cycle is not a plague. A plague is an outbreak, or a plague is something that torments in terms of disease. And so the only definition of constant bleeding, according to the medical records, would have been a situation of fibroids. So now that we have that, we are going to start to build something. So what is a tumor? A tumor is an abnormal mass of tissue which may be solid or fluid filled. Now, the body uses tumors as containers to store toxic waste collected through the body. When these systems' natural ways of elimination are overloaded, the lungs, the bowels, the kidneys, the liver, and skin. So this is what tumors are. Tumors are like little collection tanks. When the normal elimination channels can't keep up, or when they're overloaded, then the body will now start to hold things as tumors. And as we go into other presentations, specifically when we look at cancer, you will see why biopsies can actually be very dangerous. Because now you are breaking the container and allowing the whatever is inside to get to other parts of the body. So sometimes you have to be very careful with these things. Now, as we mentioned, when these channels are clogged, then the body starts to manufacture the garbage cans, which are the tumor cells. So now that we have that working in place, now let's look at fibroids. Now, what are fibroids? And fibroids, these can be actually cancerous or non-cancerous, but they are mainly non-cancerous. They're also called lymphomas, right? And they grow within the walls of the uterus. Now, with fibroids, it can be one, it can be multiple, and what you would also learn is that depending on where it is in the body or in the uterus, it will determine its name. So there are different types of fibroids. And we have the intramural fibroids, and this is the most common, and it grows in the wall of the uterus. So if you look right here, where my mouse is, these are the intramural fibroids in the wall of the actual uterus. Now there's the subserosal fibroids, and these grow on the outside of the uterus. As they grow larger, they can cause pain due to their size or pressure on the nearby organs. And as Dr. Dian did the last few weeks when we saw the side view, we realized that all of these parts, like for example, the digestive system, through the anal area, we also have the reproductive system. All of these are touching. So when something becomes a little bit oversized, now you have pressing in different directions, and that is where the pain normally comes out when you have these sort of conditions like fibroids. Now there's also the submucosal fibroids, and these grow just underneath the uterine lining and can crowd into the uterus cavity and lead to heavy bleeding and more other serious complications. And then, of course, there's the pedunculated fibroids. These grow on small stalks inside or outside the uterus. And you can see it right here in the picture, right? And then there's the intracavitary fibroids. These occur on long stalk on the inside of the uterus or inside of the cavity of the uterus. It is possible to have more than one type of fibroids. Now, trick question for you guys. Based on the record in Mark of the lady with the bleeding, which of these fibroids did she have? Let us put it out there. Which of these fibroids, based on the definition that we give of these different fibroids, which of these fibroids did the lady in Mark have? And let me just go through them again just to kind of tickle your minds a little bit. So the first one is the intramural. There's the subserosal. There is the submucosal. There is the, let me jump down, pedunculated or intracavity. Which of these in the chat, let me see who paying attention, did the lady in Mark 24, I believe, have? All right, let me see. Okay, so here is a hint. I'm going to give you 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, here's the hint right here. Submucosal. Why? These can lead to heavy bleeding and more serious complications. What was her condition when she came to Jesus? She was bleeding heavy. So the fibroid that she was dealing with was the submucosal, and this is the one right here, right? As you can see, it is just underneath the uterine lining. Now, right off the bat, right off the bat, guys, and let me just prep you before I go to the next slide. On the next slide, I actually have actual pictures, and these are from the operating theater of fibroids that were taken out. So if you have kids or if you're sensitive to blood, please Skip this. I'll tell you when I'm finished with it. Okay? So let me just put it out there. But I want to show you guys now. I think I've prepped you. So now this is what the fibroids actually look like. And yes, I know what you think. You're thinking, boy, this thing looks like a baby. And I will actually get to that. These are some of the pictures. These things are serious. As you like, look this one. This is almost like taking out a baby via C-section, right? This is the next one. And I want you guys to pay attention to this because this thing is a serious, serious issue. And a lot of ladies are dealing with this. And that is why we have these kind of webinars to show them, like, listen, you don't have to suffer with this for the rest of your life. Dr. D, when you jump on, let me know. I think Dr. D might be on tonight. I'm not sure if she's coming on, but I think she's telling me she will try and make it there. But if she's there, we'll give her a shout out, right? So let's look at some more. And then remember we said there are different types of fibroids. So sometimes you have different types of them. You have small ones, you have big ones. And then we're going down here. Again, I just wanted to put this in there so you can see exactly what we're dealing with, right? Here's some of the pictures. And listen, these things get as big, sometimes bigger than babies. Look at them. Serious, serious, serious issue, right? This is one. Here are some more. Right. And I think I've covered most of them there, right? Okay, so for those of you who are switching off because of the blood, we have finished that part. And now we're going to get into the causes. So remember we said that disease never comes without a cause, right? So if we are going to talk about reversing fibroids naturally, let's first backtrack and find out what was the cause of these fibroids. And this is where it's going to start to blow your mind. It's going to open your mind. And you would also realize why Dr. Dian and myself spend so much time on hormones before we actually get to things like reversing fibroids, PMOS, which we'll come to shortly, endometriosis, because once you understand the hormone connection, then all of this thing makes sense. And of course, we're also going to be doing one on menopause. So we had to get that hormone masterclass out of the way. It took us about 3 sessions, 3 weeks to get that out of the way. And this is why we have to do it. Now, fibroids increase in size in a woman when there is an increased level of estrogen in the body, right? These are some of the primary causes. When there are low vitamin D levels in the body, when hormone disruptors are present, when there is a thyroid imbalance, and of course, the elephant in the room, whenever COVID-19 vaccination started, we saw all kind of hell break loose, right? That has to be said. Now, let us jump here. We looked at this briefly last week and we talked about the cycle that a woman normally goes through. Now, something Dr. D mentioned, and it really makes sense. You would realize that the fibroid growth accelerates when there is an increased level of estrogen. However, increased levels of estrogen specifically in the African American race or African race, right? Now, black women tend to be affected more by fibroids than every other race. Does it mean that every other race have low estrogen? Maybe not. But there's something that is triggering it in the black population. That has to be said. Most, in fact, I would say all of the fibroids clients I've came across were from the African American race, right? So there is something to be said. Now she said something, and this really got me thinking. Whenever the body, as we mentioned here, when it can't get rid of stuff, it starts create tumors, and these are like packaging. These are like garbage package. So the fibroids is also a form of a tumor, non-cancerous most of times, and it's like a packaging for the extra estrogen. What would have triggered it in the first place? And this is where we're at right now. There has to be some internal trigger that starts the repair process or the packaging process. Now, what we know, and I'm telling you what we know as we come across more information, is that estrogen, high levels of estrogen, will fuel the growth. But what triggered the growth in the first place is something, and I'll tell you straight off the bat that we are still researching. Because if you say high estrogen levels, then it means that every woman with high estrogen levels is supposed to develop fibroids. But that is not the case. It is specifically in the African race. So we are still, Dr. Dean and myself and some other doctors, we are still looking to get some more deeper research and find out what triggers it. Yes, we know there might be genetic connections and so forth, but there has to be something that triggers it to start the growth process. Now, we're going to take it from the growth process has been triggered, and these are what we have. Once there are increased levels of estrogen, it's going to blow off. When vitamin D levels are low, it's going to blow off hormone disruptors and so forth. So this is a normal cycle. As we mentioned, from day 1 to about day 14, both estrogen and progesterone levels are baseline. As we get to day 14, estrogen shoots up, right? Estrogen spikes. Now, when that happens, after day 14, ovulation, estrogen starts to come down, and that gives signal for progesterone to start coming up. And at the end of the 20-day cycle, both of them come down. Now, we did discover that there are certain things that could keep estrogen levels predominantly high. There are things that could keep progesterone levels from coming up because if estrogen levels never come down, it never gives progesterone the signal to go up, right? And so progesterone levels can keep constantly low, estrogen levels can keep constantly high. We looked at some of those things last week, and we're going to look at some of them again today. And so let us start by looking at the sources of the estrogen. Now, a lot of ladies are dealing with what we call estrogen dominance. And when estrogen is dominant, you have some issues. Estrogen is a great servant, a very bad master. So when it is in control, estrogen is what gives you, ladies, the drive, motivation to go on, right? And that wake up and get factor. However, that is supposed to be cyclic. So it's supposed to go up, come back down after day 14, and progesterone takes over the second half of your period, which calms things down. So it's like that drive, balance, rest, work, eat, fast, right? So it's that same balancing system that is in your body. Now, if you're into just drive, then you're going to get cranky, and then also some other things are going to go up. What is that? Cortisol is going to go up. Cortisol, of course, when there's a stress hormone, in its period of intermittent spike, it is good. When it's constantly high, you have new issues. And this is now why what you're going to see is that one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. So estrogen dominance. Now that we have get that little backdrop for those of you who missed last week, we're going to look at some. Some of the drivers of estrogen dominance. Number one is soy, specifically GMO soy. So genetically modified soy tends to be very high in estrogen. And we looked at that last week. Now, and next one is isolated genistein. And this is a naturally occurring substance in soy. Again, we're talking about the GMO, fava beans, but other foods are and often found in supplements and pharmaceuticals and many things, including heart and prostate health. So in medications, for example, I know that soy isolate protein, that's a supplement. It tends to be very high in this isolated genistein. And so these things can trigger the elevated levels of estrogen in your body, which will trigger anything related to elevated levels of estrogen. Right? Now, the next one is propalvalate, and that's a preservative that is normally in microwave popcorn or even chewing gum. And you're going to realize these things are sneaking in piece by piece. We looked extensively last week at the oral contraceptive and showed you exactly how that works to keep your estrogen levels constantly growing, while at the same time bringing down your progesterone levels. So I won't go too much in that. Now, a next one is going to be Everfresh, and that is a substance that is used in the preservative in shellfish. So now you're going to see how all of these things are coming into play. Also, pregnancy would increase estrogen naturally. Plastic bottles, we looked at pesticides, and all these are different sources, perfume ingredients, etc. All these are different sources of estrogen entering the body. Now, of course, we didn't take God by surprise. And so the Lord know that at some point in history, human beings is going to be bombarded with estrogen. So that is why he gave us a liver. And what the liver does, the liver functions to remove excess estrogen. Now, where the problem lies, and then you would notice this when we get to the protocol, is that when the liver is not properly filtering out the excess estrogen, then in addition to it constantly being pumped in and not being expelled fast enough, that would also contribute to the estrogen levels building and building and building. Now, I want you guys to take away one thing. Estrogen is good as long as it is in good amounts and comes at the right time. right? So just like every hormone in your body, as long as it comes at the right cycle and it comes in the right amount, it does its job. Like everything else, if you overdo a good thing, it becomes good for nothing, right? So that's the same thing with estrogen. So we are now talking more on the side of overdoing a good thing, and it's now causing problems in the body, right? So now that we have that, we look at bisphenol A already. We looked at all these, of course, hormone replacement therapy. Right, this is a big one. Now, anybody who has ever worked with me or heard me speak, you would think that I am anti-animal products. I am not. I have showed you in previous lectures the original diet and why it was created this way. And I will get to it again tonight, touching it a little bit. But let's look at specifically dairy, milk, and its byproducts. So all of milk byproducts would include things like yogurt, would include cheese, and all of these byproducts. Now, when does a cow produce milk? Put it in the chat. At what stage in a cow's life would it produce milk? Let me give you some options. When it is pregnant or when it is not pregnant. So we engage it again tonight. Get in the chat. When does a cow produce the most milk? When it is pregnant or when it is not pregnant? Okay. Everybody say when it is pregnant. Lovely. Now, what did we say is high in a pregnant, well, human being or cow? What hormone is normally high in a pregnant cow? Just like human beings. Estrogen. And then we said that estrogen, right now we face an estrogen dominance problem where the liver is not able to filter out fast enough. We have all of these chemicals coming in faster than the body can deal with. And then now you add cheese, you add milk. The milk and cheese is coming from a cow that is loaded with estrogen. Where do you think that estrogen would end up? In the milk, in the cheese, and then ultimately inside your body. So now you have added another layer of estrogen laden food with an already loaded environment of estrogen. So the clothes you put on, the popcorn we eat in sometimes, the food, the air, the plastics, and then now you're adding it through the milk and the cheese, and the more frequent you eat them, the more you're getting that loaded. So now you're beginning to see this whole link between the original diet and what we are having here today, right? Make sense? Lovely. Perfect. Perfect. So that is where it comes to. And then it goes a step further. Because as you begin to eat all of these foods, and estrogen becomes high in the body, and in fact, let me just cut the screen here a little bit just to show you this. And estrogen becomes high in the body. What is estrogen? A storage hormone or releasing hormone? Estrogen is a storage hormone. What does happen when estrogen gets too high? They start to carry extra blessings in the body. What did we say extra fat have? Extra fat now is also a container for extra estrogen producing. So now, because the estrogen is already high, you're putting on some extra blessings. Those extra blessings have some mini estrogen producing factories inside of there. So now you're getting a constant feed of estrogen. And I hope you guys are beginning to see the link between it. So as you begin to put the pieces together, you're going to realize that everything is connected to everything. Your diet is connected to the way you look. The way you look is connected to more estrogen pumping chemicals in your body. The food you eat, the clothes you put on, the plastics you use, the birth controls, the pharmaceuticals, all of them, and it's almost like there is a concerted effort to keep you in an estrogen dominant phase. That is why you have to take back control of your health. Right. So I think I beat that horse enough. Now let's get into this one here. Because this is the one that nobody likes to talk about. Right? Even still, after all the evidence has come out, showing that the thing was a bad mistake and it was intentional, nobody still want to talk about it. But I'll talk about it. So we're gonna look at COVID-19 and hormonal changes. This was one we didn't touch last week. So we're touching it this week. Now, there are three situations: menorrhagia, metorrhagia, and polymenorrhea, right? So menorrhagia simply means heavy menstrual bleeding. Metorrhagia, hope I'm pronouncing that right, means irregular bleeding. So normally as a woman you expect to bleed during the period. In the irregular bleeding, you'll be bleeding middle of the period, start of the period, end of the period, in the period, when no period. That is what that is. And then the polymenorrhea is dealing with frequent periods. So normally we look at a 28 to 34 cycle. This will become in 21 days, 20 days. That is what is happening. So that is what all these terms means, right? So with that being said, there was a study that was done and that they found that all of these conditions started to show up, right? During the initial phases, let me read this now, of the COVID-19 mass vaccination campaigns, there were reservations that these vaccines could potentially affect the menstrual cycle in women. This idea was reinforced when many women reported that their menstrual cycle unexpectedly changed after vaccination. Previously, the HPV vaccine was also reported to cause menstrual disturbances. Now, look at the numbers. A total of 78,138 vaccinated females were included in this review from 14 studies. So, this is not just no small amount of people. Of these, look at the numbers. 39,759, which accounts for 52.05%, had some form of menstrual problem after vaccination. All studies were published between 2021 and 2022, and 3 of the 12 studies showed no causal relationship between menstrual abnormalities and COVID-19 vaccine. Now let's see what we have here. After the first dose of vaccine, 66.7% of women who received AstraZeneca, 57.1% of women who received Pfizer and BioNTech, 47.4% of women who received Moderna, and 33.3% of women who received the Johnson & Johnson reported alterations in the frequency of the subsequent menstrual cycles. Most of these women had menstruation 1 to 5 days earlier than expected, and this alteration occurred mainly when the first dose of vaccine was administered during the first 14 days of the menstrual cycle. Let's keep it going. The various types of vaccines administered to the patients include Sinopharm, Sinovac, Covax, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Coronavax, Novavax, and J&J. The criteria of menstrual abnormalities were defined in all included studies, and menorrhagia, as we mentioned earlier, was most commonly observed was the most commonly observed symptom of the COVID-19 vaccine. Right. This review provides evidence that females subjected to the COVID-19 vaccine may experience menstrual abnormalities, included but not limited to menorrhagia, metrorrhagia, polymenorrhea. Such abnormalities can impact daily life activities and ultimately impair a female's quality of life. There you have it with the studies. 2, 3, 4, 5, come back again month 6, especially in the initial phases of the vaccination. That's what we're seeing right now. So these ones from what I see at the practice, we do see these for real. So this is also another factor that could throw your hormone off. We didn't try that in last week, but this is just something to note. So we have with vitamin D. And the chronic vitamin D deficient health sciences uterine fibroid study of women between the ages of 35 to 49 years old showed that sufficient vitamin D levels, and that is numbers greater than 20 nanogram per milliliter, was associated with a reduced risk of uterine fibroids by 32% compared to a 95% increased risk for women with vitamin D deficiency or insufficient vitamin D levels. What does that mean? Let's bring it home now. terms, science terms, let's get to the real math. What time of the day would the sun create the highest levels of vitamin D levels in your body? What time of the day would the sun create or synergize or synthesize the highest levels of vitamin D in your body? Does anyone know? Put it in the chat if you know. Okay. Okay. All right. So just let me know if you guys are hearing me okay. I'm seeing that the internet is dropping. So let me just make sure that you guys are hearing me before I continue. Okay. So I'm seeing some answers coming in. Right. So I think we are back there with the internet. It's breaking up at intervals. Okay, no worries, guys. What I'll do, I'll definitely do a run of this. I think it's the internet here at my new location. So I'm not at my original location, and I think that may be the issue. But let's keep this show going on. We'll trust that the Lord will bring it back in. So between the hours of in our time zone of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., the UVB rays, which are the rays of the sun that creates or synthesizes the highest levels of vitamin D in your body, is at its highest. Between which hours? 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Okay. Where are most persons between 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.? Put it in the chat. Between the hours of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., where are most persons? In an office, in a school, in a building outside of the sun. So, could it be possible that you could live in the Caribbean where there is sun more than 300 plus days for the year and be chronically vitamin D deficient? The answer is yes. In fact, if you were to take a vitamin D3 test, it's called a 25 hydroxyl test, and check your vitamin D3 levels, you will be surprised to know that your vitamin D levels may be low. And we just saw here that low vitamin D levels, especially chronically low vitamin D levels, have a 95% increased risk of developing fibroids. Now, there is a fix to this. I will share it with you shortly, but I just want to put that out there. So it doesn't mean because we are living in a sunny environment, we are actually enjoying the benefits of the sun. And then on top of that, you would realize that there are some other factors which we'll be getting to shortly. Right. So we did the vitamin D, fibroids. Right. So I'll leave that there. We actually have the studies on that. Now, women who are vitamin D deficient is at risk for not just fibroids, but polycystic ovaries, and now it's called PMOS. And that risk is an 85% risk. This thing is serious. Hormonal imbalances, 95%. Colorectal cancer, 253%. Breast cancer, woman, 600%. So this is not about not wanting to go in the sun and get burned up. This is possibly about saving your life from becoming another victim or another statistic in these charts. Right? So when you find yourself, and that is why we always start this thing off with the laws of health. Because you would realize that sunlight is number 2 in the laws of health. And there's a reason why the Lord gave us free vitamin D dosages and placed us in the beautiful Caribbean, and we have masked it through work to be in an office and not enjoying the sunlight. So I hope when you read this, it will inspire you to get back out in the sun. All right? So we're building this thing. So now we are beginning to see the link and all of the causes of fibroids, all the different things. So we saw the estrogen levels. We looked at that. Yes, we hear that a lot. But then we also saw the COVID-19 vaccine. We are also beginning to see the vitamin D deficiency. And then also what we're going to realize is that the thyroid has a massive part to play in it as well. Because the thyroid is one of those hormones that is in the master regulation, right? The master regulator is the pituitary gland, but the thyroid also plays a massive function in how the other hormones downstream operate. And so what you would realize is that one of the things that the thyroids need to function is something called iodine, which is why you see iodized salt. And these are things that we'll get from seaweed, vegetables, kelp juice, or even sea salt containing iodine. Now, there are some things that can actually inhibit the absorption of iodine. And what I'm going to break on now is some of these things. Now, let me just read a quotation here. Tea and coffee, fine flour bread, now fine flour means white flour, pickles, coarse vegetables, candies, condiments, pastries fail of supplying proper nutriment. Many a student has broken down as a result of using such foods. Many a puny child incapable of vigorous effort of mind or body is the victim of an impoverished diet. Now let's talk about coarse vegetables. And when we talk about coarse vegetables, we're talking about things like broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, beet, artichoke, etc. Now, am I saying vegetables are wrong? What coarse vegetables simply mean is when you eat the foods raw. And this is something we looked at in the diet, right? Vegetables, as we mentioned, should be cooked or should be steamed lightly. And let me show you where that says. Vegetables need to be thoroughly cooked and make them palatable and digestible. Now, when we say steam, you want to steam the vegetables until they are tender. You're not going to overcook them, but you're going to steam them until tender. And here's the reason why. The heat actually breaks down the plant's thick cell walls and aids the body's uptake of vitamins and minerals that are bound to those cells. These vitamins and minerals are embedded in a complex mass of fiber called cellulose and a carbohydrate that is difficult for a human body to digest. So you see this thing going around about eating all your foods raw food diet, raw food diet. When you don't understand certain things, you see, you could be misled. Now let me show you something, and I'm going to show you guys how this thing comes together. In the beginning, we did this a couple of times before. In the beginning, the original diet for mankind was what? Herb bearing seeds and the fruit of a tree yielding seed. So basically, fruits, nuts, grains. That was our original diet, right? Now, in if you go in Genesis, I believe it's Genesis 1:31, who ate of the herb of the field? What living kind ate of the herb of the field? This is before sin. Man ate fruits, nuts, grains. Who ate of the herb of the field? Who was created to eat the herb of the field? Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat, and you guys are there. Right, the animals. The animals, correct. Now, when was man given permission to eat of the herb of the field? After sin. So in their original created state, and you can see it today, which is why when you look at a cow, sheep, when they eat the grass, they bring it back up, regurgitate, and they chew it again. You know, they have their two stomachs. Now, the human being does not have that capability. So we do not have the ability, if we eat raw herbs, like raw herbs or even vegetables, to break down that cellulose wall and to extract the vitamins out of it. Which is why the instruction is given for us to steam it until tender. And this is actually found in science in the kitchen, if not mistaken. It actually breaks this thick wall and you can get more out of it. Do you know that you get more from a steamed carrot than if you did a raw carrot? So it just actually shows you the biology behind our body creation and why these actually make sense even in 2026, right? So let me show you some other benefits of well, we talked about that one already. Right, we looked at that, and let me just go here quickly. Right, right. So we're gonna skip down there now, and we're going to now look at some of the symptoms of fibroids. So when a person have fibroids, look at the causes. Now let's go on to the symptoms. When a person have fibroids, what is going to happen? You're going to have increased vaginal discharge. Of course, we looked at the different types of fibroids and where they were formed, and we see that some of them can lead to heavy bleeding, and because of where they are formed, they'll actually cause different abnormalities in the body. There will also be bleeding after intercourse. Again, everything is now crushed up or rubbed up together, so there's not a lot of free space. Pain in the back, pain in the legs and pelvis, pressure on the bladder, which could lead to frequent urination, or frequent bowel movement, right? Blocked uterine flow. And again, remember these are masses growing inside of you. And then right on these walls, between these walls, you have the excretory system, you have the bladder, you have the urinary tract. And so if you have masses pushing against them, it can start blocking and having different issues coming up. So these fibers are not just some things that are non-cancerous growing inside you, they actually affect the functions of other body parts, right? So that's just something to notice. And then some persons are lucky to just have no symptoms. Now, these are some factors that are normally associated with the presence of fibroids. Being overweight or obese, never having given birth to a child, onset of the menstrual period prior to 10 years of age. So you find ladies or girls who had an early period would tend to be at a disposition to developing fibroids. Women ages 30 to 40 onto menopause is normally when it starts to show up. So between the age of 30 to 40 onto menopause is when you normally see fibroids show up. As we mentioned again, African heritage, they have a 3 to 9 times more often occurrence than Caucasian women. This is also an X factor. Eating flesh. Chicken, turkey, ham, beef, lamb, lobster, crab, wild meat. Why do you think that is? I don't like to just put information. I want to show you why. Why do you think that is? Now, think about some of the triggers to S2. I think I give it away. But think about some of the triggers to fibroids. And see why you think that eating chicken, turkey, ham, beef, lobster, crab, wild meat would actually be associated with the presence of fibroids. Let me see it in the chat. I'll give you guys a few seconds to think. Right, that is it. That is it. That is it, Coach Judy. Because most of these foods are estrogen laden. And so when they are estrogen laden, then what you are doing now, you're already getting bombarded with estrogen. And then you're adding more estrogen to it. It's just like if you have a fire. If I have some issues going on there, lot of loose cans, lot of empty gasoline there, and then you come with a power hose and just dump more gasoline into it. Instead of putting the fire out, you're just going to give it more energy to blaze longer. So that is what flesh items do. We already show you how milk and cheese do it. This is what the flesh items do because you have to keep in mind, you have to keep in mind that the producers of the food industry has one goal in mind, and that is profit. Now, because these are animals, and in some cases that can be questionable, they have a certain cycle where they go from chick to fully grown for the slaughterhouse. The longer that cycle, the least money they will make. So their goal would always be to shorten that cycle. And how do it? They pump these animals with hormones that will speed up their growth cycle. So instead of taking the full term, they take half of that and you have a fully grown chicken. And yes, you're happy at the meal table, but that meal is also loaded with hormones. So when you eat it, your body just ingests it, and now you have a trigger of diseases. All right? So that is just how that is the link right there. And if you look right now, if you just did some research, guys, into like slaughterhouses and just look at the practice from people who actually work inside there, you would reconsider the food you eat. Really reconsider. Additionally, let me put this in as well. Additionally, unlike animal sources, persons say, well, plants also have again sprayed pesticides. That is true. What is needed in the body to remove excess throughout the digestive system? What do they normally tell you to include in a diet? If you want to remove excess cholesterol, excess estrogen, support the liver, pull out toxins, what do they tell you to include in a diet? It starts with F. What is the F word? It starts with F and ends with E. What is the F word? That's correct. Fiber. So even though, yes, some of the plants have the pesticide spray, we're not saying go eat pesticide plant, but if you happen to eat it, these also have a couple of things. They have antioxidants, which means that they will dampen the effect of some of these pesticides. They also have phytonutrients, which will protect your body. But most importantly, they have fiber, which will bind to foreign and take it safely outside the body. Animal, you're getting a loaded chemical food with nothing to take the excess outside. So let me just put a point in here. And I always tell my fit mals this. If you are still in the transition, if you still consume animal meat, this is the two things I recommend you do as much as possible, this might be a little bit tricky, but as much as possible, try to stick with organic, pesticide free. That's step one. Step two, whenever you consume flesh items, my goal is for that you eventually not consume them, but whenever you consume them, please, for God's sake, add beans or beans to it, right? So beans or peas. Lentils, super high in fiber. Soybeans, non-GMO, super high in fiber. Kidney beans, super high in fiber. Chia seeds, super high in fiber. So when you're eating the meat, by adding these, it's like you're putting a little layer of protection over it. Of course, the best protection is abstinence, but it's like a layer of protection that you will pull all of the excess stuff out. And then for ladies, the excess fiber will also help with the liver function. It also help pull out the excess estrogen in your body, and that just works. It's a two-edged sword that works in your favor, right? So I just thought I'll put that in there. Right, so we're building this thing. Lovely. Now, pregnant. So, just something to note about pregnancy and fibroids. Now, you guys have seen the pictures of the fibroids there. Sometimes the reason why ladies with fibroids have difficulties getting pregnant because the fibroids and the baby is fighting for the same nutrition. And normally fibroids win. You see how big these things get. So that uterine wall that should be feeding the baby, the fibroids is feeding from that and starving the baby. So it's a very, very dangerous situation. All right? Lovely. Now, that we have that out of the way, let us now talk about this system. And of course, for those of you joining us for the first time, let me just explain to you how this system works. So let's say you want to leave here now after this webinar, and you went inside your bathroom and you realize it's flooded. Upon further investigation, you realize that the sink is on full blast, the pipe is on full blast, the sink is clogged up, and it's overflowing onto the floor. The three steps you could take, you could turn off the tap, you could start mopping the floor, or you could unplug the sink. Now, the smart person will do them in this order. The first thing they will do is to turn off the tap. Because it doesn't make sense to go and mop the floor when the tap's still blasting and the sink's still clogged. Right? So they will turn off the tap first, that stops the source. Then they unclog the sink, that will move the excess out of the sink, and then start clean up by mopping the floor. Now, this is the exact same principle that we're going to use in fibroids. We already identify the causes, the triggers of fibroids. So now, the first thing we're going to do is to turn off the tap. Why we start with the tap first? Because the tap is what is blasting most of the chemicals, estrogen, etc. inside the body to cause the growth of fibroids. So that's going to be the first thing. So of course, it goes without saying, we got to go straight to the belly of the beast, which is diet. And of course, you don't know this is coming. Obviously, we're going to remove all of the blasts of estrogen in your body. The highest blast of estrogen in your body, we looked at them already, milk and dairy products, high estrogen. High protein diet, of course, this is because of the meat, flesh, etc. Hormone-laden meat, high fat foods. Right? We're moving these. Now, if you notice, if you just remove flesh items, all this get removed there. If you just remove flesh items from it there, all of this get removed. Right? Lovely. The second part we're going to move is turning off the stimulants. Caffeine, which means coffee, tea, chocolate, cocoa. All these are stimulants to your body. Now, remember, I have questions at the end, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me. So what caffeine does? Caffeine is a stimulant. And caffeine, if you have a woman who already has a hormonal imbalance, high cortisol, high estrogen, caffeine will be like taking your foot on the gas pedal and going from open to fully closed, mashing it to the floor. So everything just speeds up. That's what caffeine does in your body, right? Caffeine also will raise your blood pressure a bit. It also raises your cortisol, which is how you get that stimulating alert effect. And if you're constantly hitting caffeine drinks every single morning, then all you're doing is just accelerating a problem, right? So I thought I'll put that right in there. Now, carbonated, sugar, alcohol, all of these pretty much do the same thing. They rob the body of chemicals. So, for example, sugary foods tend to pull calcium out of the bones, which is why when you eat high sugar, you tend to have weak bones. If you eat plenty milk or use plenty milk and cheese, you will tend to have weak bones, right? So that's just something I thought I'll put in there. Right. Now that we realize we're going to pull the stimulants out, so we're going to push the stimulants out. Let's go back to what we're putting in now. This is the fun part. What are we putting in? Now, what you want to put in, you want to eat low-fat, high-fiber diet. I've already given you the options. So, when you eat, these are the high-fiber foods. Chia seeds. Let me give you the exact number. I actually did it last week. I think it is, not think, 3 tablespoons. Is it 3 tablespoons? I think it's 3 tablespoons. 3 tablespoons of chia seeds have close to 28 grams of fiber, which is the minimum daily recommended fiber, right? So I'm not saying you just go and eat chia seeds, but I'm just showing you that chia seeds actually has a lot of fiber in there. Lentil peas has a lot of fiber in there. Your beans have a lot of fiber in there. Now, in case you want to go in terms of order, the seeds and the peas have the highest amount of fiber. The vegetables and the fruits, then they are level below, right? So normally you think that if you eat a lot of vegetables, you get more fiber. Actually, peas and the seeds have more fiber in them. So just something to note, right? So when you start your plate tomorrow morning, if you have chia seeds, make sure and throw some chia seeds in a warm cup of water, allow them to expand. Bring that down. You're getting the fiber started. I'm showing you how to implement this thing from to now, right? Tomorrow, whatever you're eating, try and get some lentil peas in there or some other peas in there. I'm not telling you to powder your chicken yet. I know things take time. Of course, pretty Lord, you can change your taste, but start throwing the good things in there. Lay them with your peas and peas. Now, this is a cool part. You see these cruciferous vegetables? So like cabbage, broccoli, celery, and so forth. These have something in there called DIM. The definition is not important. What DIM does, right? DIM is a chemical. This is very powerful stuff. This is the lab stuff now. DIM actually prevents excess estrogen buildup in the body. It also prevents the body. Remember, we talk about the fat cells. When you have fat cells in your body, these would cause more estrogen to come up. What DIM does, DIM inhibits these fat cells from, as you would call, aromatizing or changing and then creating estrogen. DIM is found naturally in these foods: cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and the cruciferous family. Of course, we want to make sure that we get all of the DIM, so what we're going to do to the food? We're going to eat it raw, we're going to steam it until tender. We're going to steam it until tender. So we break away all the cellulose, all the cell walls, and we get all of that DIM apart from the other stuff inside your body. So for fibroids lady, this is something you want to make sure they have. Now, I'm going to say, Jason boy, broccoli expensive, cabbage expensive, these things expensive. Let me give you the next option. You can look for a supplement called DIM, D-I-M. Write it down, D-I-M, and you can use that as well. So that will also do what this is designed to do. Of course, you'll obviously want to eat whole foods, but that is your worst case scenario right there, right? So anytime you deal with high estrogen, anytime you deal with balancing hormones, DIM is something you want to go. For my guys, the guys who are on here, just listening for information purposes. Now, what you're seeing is that a lot of guys are having what we call man boobs. There's actually a name for it. I can't remember the name right now. But a lot of guys, and especially young boys, having man boobs. And that is a next sign of aromatization. It's also a sign of the hormone-laden foods that you're eating. If you find yourself dealing with man boobs, there is something you want to add. Before you go and add testosterone supplements and testosterone foods, because if you add too much testosterone, all your body will do is just aromatize and change it back to estrogen. DIM blocks that from happening. So that is just a little bonus tip. It's not in my slide, but it's just something I use in my practice. So you guys could just take that and run with that. All right. So we looked at the fruits, we looked at the legumes, and we looked at all of that. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Cookery gas. Of course, drink plenty of water because you want to make sure and keep the liver flush. Remember, your liver is your friend. When it comes to estrogen, when it comes to hormones, the liver is your friend. The liver does all the detoxifying. The liver takes all of the excess out. So if the liver is clogged up, then you're going to be clogged up. So treat your liver well, and it will treat you well. Lovely. So we deal with step one. We don't take out some of the top. We take out all them heavy-laden food. Now we get an exciting part. Now we're going to unplug. This is going to be lifestyle changes. Now, who did I say is your friend? The liver is your friend. We're going to treat the liver well. The liver, we're going to handle him good every single morning. So this is how you're going to do it for me. 1 cup to half lemon. Now this is going to be warm water. 1 cup to a half lemon. And you drink it, of course, drink it through a straw to protect enamel. Now the next question I get, you see, I'm going to preempt everything you're going to tell me. Lemon, I can't get lemon where I am. Fine, that's not a problem. I'll work with you. If you go in any grocery right now, in any country represented here, you will see they have lemon juice concentrate in the bottle. Lemon juice. Now, lime does not do the same thing. You're going to look for lemon juice concentrates. Every single morning from tomorrow, well, not from tomorrow morning because you can't make grocery tonight. So from Tuesday morning, because you're going to take this as an assignment. Whether or not you have fibroids, this is just going to be general taking care of the liver. You're going to take 1 tablespoon of that lemon juice, add it to a cup of warm water, and drink it through a straw every morning on an empty stomach. Right? I know some of you in the fit mass are doing some variations to it, so stick with that. I'm not going to change it up. Just make sure you're getting lemon water every morning. That is going to flush the liver for you. That is also going to help to release some of the extra fat cells. So it's going to help like a metabolic boost. and getting some of that fat burning effect going. So that is something I want every single person here, male or female, fibroids, no fibroids, do that every morning because your liver is going to be your best friend. No, we're cooking with gas. We're building this thing. We're picking it up now. We're going downstream full throttle. Avoid overeating. Why? Because if you eat too much, especially of the wrong foods, we're going to get extra blessings. And if we get extra blessings, we're going to get extra estrogen creating cells. Of course. But listen, coach is going to work with you. If you eat, and this is something I'm trying with my ladies right now. If you eat whole foods, like real human foods, so like sweet potato, brown rice, oats, beans, peas, you would find that it's harder to eat whole foods in excess amount than it is to eat processed foods. In fact, if you guys are having me on Facebook or FIMA, I did a video this morning where we laid out a line with whole foods versus processed foods, and you will see the caloric difference. So go ahead and watch it when you finish here, right? Lovely. Keep the weight low, of course, we talked about that. This is a big one. Okay, guys, you can tell I'm getting super excited now, right? Fear not, that happens from time to time. Excess clothing on the trunk. Now I'm going to talk to all the hot girls on the call tonight. Right? Now, I'm telling you now from a scientific point of view. Of course, I could tell you from a religious point of view, just keep yourself modest and dress modestly, right? Whatever is on your body is supposed to be for you and your husband, not everybody's supposed to see. But I'm going to tell you from a scientific point of view. When we did the call on hydrotherapy, where did we say that the blood loves to flow to? Warm areas of the body or cold areas of the body? Put it in the chat for me. We got to go from there. When we did the call on hydrotherapy, the blood likes to flow to which part of the body? The warmer areas or the colder areas? Let's see in the chat. I know you guys are listening. Well, we have quite a lot of folks on tonight. 36 guys. Oh, excellent. All right. So, right. It is in the warmer areas. So now, the fibroids. Let's talk fibroids. Let me jump off the screen. I need to go full screen now. Right. The fibroids need estrogen. They need BPA. They need all of this to grow big, especially estrogen. Who brings the estrogen to the uterus? The blood, right? If you have all of these things coming in and you have the blood flow blast into the uterus, then you have the perfect conditions for the fibroids to grow. Now, we also said the blood likes to congregate in the warmer areas of the body. So if you are wearing a tank top, mini top, your arms exposed, you have on a pom-pom shorts, that's how we know it, pom-pom shorts, your legs exposed, where are the warmest areas of your body? In the middle or to the extremities? Obviously the middle. So because most of your clothes are in the trunk area, the blood is going to come to the trunk area because this leg is cold, this hand is cold, all here is cold, the blood is going to concentrate itself here. What it's going to bring? It's going to bring all the estrogen-laden stuff and it's going to feed who? The fibroids. So your fibroids will grow faster. Now, if you switch that around, and notice this, like this is if you have clothes that keep your entire body warm, first of all, you're gonna have better circulation, and you're not gonna have a congregation of the blood in this area, which means long term you're gonna start to starve off the fibroids when you add it to the other things that we'll be recommending tonight. If that makes sense, say, Coach Jason, the thing make all the sense in the world. Lovely. We building. Vitamin D. No. We talked about vitamin D earlier, and we talked about the importance of vitamin D. Now, I know, let me give you some recommendations. So, for light-skinned individuals, that is Caucasians, you need about 15 to 30 minutes of sunlight daily to get the appropriate amount of vitamin D. For dark-skinned individuals like myself and darker, we need 45 to an hour and a half daily to get the proper vitamin D. And that is between the hours of 9 to 3 p.m. Now, right off the bat, Coach Jason, I'm not going to stop in the sun. I want to get black. Okay, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to work with you. Because some studies were done. Now, preferably, guys, please go in the sun. Right? Please spend some time in the sun. But if you choose not to, I'm not going to leave you unarmed. So this is the next recommendation. Now, keep in mind, this is why I left this here and actually skipped it earlier. Keep in mind, You do this when you have started following the other one, which is mainly turning off the high estrogen coming in. If you don't want to go any sun, you're going to look for a supplement that has vitamin D3 with K2. I'll show you why. For fibroids patients, these are the dosages. You can snapshot this if you know. 50,000 IUs for the first 3 months. Then 30,000 IUs for the next 3 months. Then 20,000 IUs for 6 months. And then 10,000 IUs for 9 months. So what you're realizing here, this is going to be a massive dose of vitamin D to get your body's levels up. Especially dark-skinned women, because you don't spend as much hour and a half to 45 minutes in the sun, and you're in the office between 9 to 3, you would be surprised that you may be chronically deficient, right? So this is really going to give you that topic boost. And then realize that when you are vitamin D deficient, you have a 95% increase of developing fibroids and a 600% increase of developing breast cancer. So we're hitting all them birds in one stone, right? So this is the dosages. Now, the reason that we recommend, well, we showed this already with the fibroids and what happens. The reason why I recommend combining D3 with K2 is that by combining D3 and K2, it benefits the bone tissue. So what happens, right? D3 enhances the body's ability to absorb calcium. Now, this can lead to elevated blood calcium levels, which, if you think calcium is a hard mineral, if it gets too elevated, it can start calcifying inside the arteries, which could start create blockages, right? Now, what K2 does, K2 takes the excess calcium, when there's enough in the blood, it directs it back into the bone where it is needed. So that is why we add D3 now with K2. So the D3, yes, that will help with the body's ability to absorb calcium. Yes, it put in more calcium, but like if it absorbs too much things, sometimes it could build up too much. And when the body have enough, then the K2 will say, okay, we have enough, send it back to the bones, the teeth where it is needed. All right? So that's why we normally recommend that. Lovely. Now the next one. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all these are hormones that are maintained with sleep. So we looked at the estrogen progesterone balance earlier, and so we wanted to try and get now. And if you notice, all these are actually laws of health now. We talk about sunlight, now we're talking about rest. You're going to aim for about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Now, I know it will be a little challenging for you right off the bat. Let me give you some recommendations right off the bat that you could use. I'm going to tell you from ones that I use and ones that clients tell me. Now, the first one I'm going to throw off right off you soursop bitters. A client tell me that works really good. She swear by it. So soursop bitters, that works for sleeping. The actual soursop leaves, those work for sleeping as well. I'm giving you all the options. You'll try and see which one works for you, because different one works for different persons. Exercise. You didn't know? Yes, man. If you get a little form exercise, that will help you sleep like a baby. Spending time in the sun, that also helps you to sleep well, like a baby. In terms of herbs, trumpet bush, I find, as we spoke about in the office last week, it makes you go into some deep dreams, but it has like a drowsy effect. So I won't use it if I'm walking on a daily basis, right? So trumpet bush could do that for you. And next one will be ashwagandha, specifically one with KSM 66. So I'm giving you all the things that you can use if you're struggling with sleep. And what I'm doing here, I'm going through the different areas, and you will realize, okay, well, sleep is not my thing, but eating is my thing, or vitamin D is my thing. So you take those information I need for you. So I'm going through all of them, and you just take the one that applies for you. All right. So these are some of the herbs that will help you with sleeping. These are the ones I can remember right off the bat. So give any of these a try if you struggle with that. Of course, we look at exercise. Exercise, apart from inducing sleep, helping your heart, exercise also blocks out excessive estrogen, right? So it also helps with hormonal balance, right? We talk about wearing long garments. Oh, this is a big one. So you see this new thing them ladies have these tight thing around the waist when they're exercising. Please don't do that. You are cutting off the flow and you are applying excess pelvic pressure. Remember what the fibroids do? They push against from outside and you hear pushing from inside, and now you're just having a clogged up abdominal cavity. And they're creating a bunch of different situations. So don't wear any tight clothing here. Keep this strong area here loose. All right, now let's get into the herbs. First things first, of course, I'll recommend you do a spike protein detox. We have a whole thing on that. Let me give you the fastest thing that you could use right now. It is called the nicotine patch. Now, I have a whole thing teaching you that nicotine is not addictive. So nicotine patch, if you can get nicotine patch, you're looking for 2 mgs. You're going to stick it anywhere in the abdominal cavity and wear it for 24 hours. You will continue that for 90 days. So nicotine patch, anywhere in the abdominal cavity, 2 milligrams is what you're looking for. All right? That's step number one. That's going to take care of all the vaccine-related issues. All right, now let's get down to the herbs. You're going to have to do some cleansing. So you're going to do some hormonal balance. Let me start with that. So how we recommend the hormonal balance is that you do a cleanse every weekend for 12 weeks. 12 weeks, yes, 12 weeks. Every weekend for 12 weeks. If you miss a weekend, no problem, just pick it up the next weekend. You could use, let me give you the cheapest option. If you have castor oil, you could use castor oil to do the cleanse. Or you could just use the 7-day cleanse. Any of those works perfectly fine. So any of these can work. So just use it every weekend and run it for 12 weeks. All right? Now, that is the cleansing part. Let me jump down here first. I want to get to that part. I want to jump down here and make sure. Right. Now, we're going to talk about the LBH, liver blood hormones. This is the balance. So this is a cycle that you're going to follow, and you're going to rotate it every 3 weeks, right? So this is the first cycle we're going to do with the blood. Now you're going to use burdock root and dandelion. If you have the capsule or the herb, you're going to use these, and you're going to use this every day for 1 week. This is week 1, every day for 1 week. You can also throw in turmeric tea and Vitex there. I'm going to leave this up on the screen a little bit so you can take a picture. Now, what I'm doing here, I'm balancing your hormones to make sure that we have the control and there is no feeding going in for the fibroids, right? So this is what I'm doing here. The turmeric is also going to prevent the growth of fibroids. Right? Everybody have that? Can I change the screen now? Okay. Rounds number 2. Black cohosh, hormonal balance, sheep sorrel, hickory root, and turmeric. Now, if you don't have all of these, just pick the ones you have and work with that. That's week number 2. Right? Everybody have that? Lovely. And so what you're going to do, you're just going to rotate these back and forth. So when week number 3 back, you go back to this. And week number 2, you go back to this. Right? And you just keep rotating these. You can do this for about, I'll give you 6 weeks to 12 weeks. You can do it like that. Right? So you can do it as a tea and you can do it as a herb. Now that we have that out of place, these ones I highlighted, these are what we call the bad boys. Now there's something called nattokinase and serrapeptase, 2 compounds. And what these do, these actually break down the fiber inside of the fibroids and literally cause the fibroids to shrink. Side note, they also clean out your arteries. So if you have arterial blockage, arterial plaque, they will actually cause that to break down and clean out your arteries. This is not the reason I highlight it, because I wanted to make sure to get it. Nattokinase or serrapeptase. Now they have one where they have both of them in the same herb. It's called Nattoserra by Doctor's Best. Take a picture of that. If you're dealing with fibroids, definitely get yourself on this. And see if you can get yourself at least a 12-week supply. Right? So enough to last you for 12 weeks. Now let me stick a pin here. If you're on blood thinning medication, you can't use this, because what did I say it does? It actually helps to clean out your arteries. So you don't want using a pharmaceutical medication doing the same thing. You could find yourself in serious issues. So this is one I would not recommend if you're on blood thinning medications. All right? So that is the different there. Of course, we talk about the vitamin D3 with K2. That is the cycle there. You guys can take a picture of it. Lovely. Now, we're going to get back to balancing the hormone. Progesterone cream. Now, fibroids patients, we're talking to you now. So, I'm going to have to read this one for you. Massage 2 pumps into the smooth skin areas such as the inner arms and outer arms, or inner thighs and outer thighs and abdomen twice daily. So, generally with these creams, you rotate them. So, if you're using them, inner arms, that could be night 1, night 2, here, this area, night 3, inner thighs, right? So, just rotate them. And you're going to be rubbing this on these specific areas, and this is how you will do it. If you are premenopausal, you will use 14 days prior to your first menstruation. So 14 days before your period comes, you'll start using this and you stop at the end of the period. If you are in the menopausal days, then you'll just use it for 21 days and then stop for 7 days. All right, so there are 2 persons there. If you're menopause, just use it for any 21 days and then the rest for 7 days, go again. If you still have a period, then 14 days before your period starts, and we showed how to calculate that last time, you will use that right up until the period ends and just continue the cycle. Now, there's something else that you'll also be using with this, and we talked about this last week, is the wild yarn cream. The same cycle applies. Same cycle applies. We start on day 12 to day 20, and then from day 21 to 28 with precise amounts, right? If you are menopausal, as we mentioned, this one is from day 12 to day 20, and then from day 21 to 28 with two precise amounts. So basically, the same principle, I just help us into a normal principle. So from day 14, keep it simple. We run the same thing where we rub it in the inner arms, abdomen, inner thighs. If you're menopausal, you start on day 7 with precise amount. Basically, the same thing, run it for 21 days and take a 7-day break. All right? Lovely. Now, let me pause. I see questions coming in. Hi, coach. Will this session be recorded? Go ahead, miss. Sure, no problem. Yes, I will. It will be recorded. I'll be doing it again. Lovely. Now, the next thing we're going to be looking at is castor oil, and I'm gonna stick it right here. So for those of you with the fibroids, you're gonna use castor oil rubs. So you're gonna take the castor oil and you're gonna rub it on the abdomen area here. Now, something about castor oil you did not know. Castor oil actually penetrates the skin on a much deeper level than most oils, and it can access deeper tissues. It has drawing power for up to 4 inches deep, and it draws thoroughly. It encourages lymphatic circulation, drainage, improved blood flow, anti-inflammatory, and help to detoxify the breast tissue, supports shrinking and healing of benign mass, swellings, including cysts, growth, tumors, and fibroadenomas, right? So this could also be used in addition to the protocol that we give you here. So let me make sure I covered everything. There are some other parts to it. Let me touch that, right? Let me just kind of help you guys there. So I'm giving you everything now. I'm not gonna hold back on the rest. I'm gonna give you everything. Now, this is something you can use. It's a hydrotherapy part now, using water. You're gonna do a cold sitz bath with water reaching up to the abdomen. Why do you think you're gonna do that? What does the cold do to the blood? The cold discourages blood flow. So when you do the cold sitz bath every morning, you are kind of starving the fibroids for a couple of minutes in the morning, right? That is a cold sit bath, and that is what that will do. Poultice treatment. Again, this was the castor oil. So you're going to rub the castor oil, put it on your abdomen area, and then you can apply a towel over the abdomen, apply a hot pack, and then you can also tie it in with a plastic wrap. So what you can do, you can put the castor oil here, and then you can rub a plastic wrap around just to keep it in place and sleep with that in the night. So while you're sleeping, that will help to pull out and draw out. As we saw, it helps with the shrinking of tumors, right? So in addition to what you're doing, putting in, you're doing the external ones as well. Now, this one is a little bit tricky. This one is called a vaginal suppository. And what this is a herbal blend that you will make. You'll turn it into like a tampon shape, and you would use it like you would use a tampon. So that will be more of a direct approach to pulling the fibroids, helping to breaking it down and creating the healing there. So for this one, you'll be using slippery M, yellow dock, golden seal, squaw vine, tea tree oil, coconut or olive oil to make the foam paste hard, right? Now, what we normally recommend if you're using a suppository is that you put it in the freezer so that it becomes a little bit firm so that it can stay when you use it. You're going to be using it like a tampon, and then after using it, you must use a panty liner to prevent when it starts to break down. All right? So just something there to note. Right, I think I covered. So these are some of the herbs that I recommend here if you want to take pictures. So this is the Natocera. This is the one that has both of them in it. This is the nattokinase by itself. This is serrapeptase by itself. This is super M enzymes. And of course, everybody familiar with the 7-day cleanse. The let me give you that one time. Let me give you guys the what it's called. Nicotine patch. The nicotine patch. Let me give you guys how that looks like, right? Nicotine patch. Let me give you guys that. It's normally on Amazon. Let me see if I find it here. Let me try with Amazon one. I normally have my picture, but I don't have it here. Right, this is it right here. This one. So you see this one here? Look for the one that says 2 milligrams, right? 2 mgs. And these are the patch you're going to be sticking on the abdomen area. You keep that on for 24 hours. You bathe it and everything, and you run that for 90 days or 12 weeks. All right. So that has brought us to the end. It was a lot of information. And if it would help, guys, just let me know in the chat. If it would help, I could actually give you guys a graphic handout of this so you have the reference to it. So what I want you guys to take away. Yes, I give you a bunch of different remedies for the fibroids. I don't expect you to do all of them. When I give you the handout, you just pick the one you want to work on that. When it gets stabilized, you move to the next one. When it gets stabilized, move to the next one. When it gets stabilized, move to the next one. Now, right off the bat, the ones I will tell you not to skip is the pumping in of the estrogen, which will be through the meat and eggs, making sure the fiber is high, and of course eating the greens. Those don't skip those. Now in terms of supplements, if you want to go on one right away, I definitely recommend the nicotine patch because I've seen the best results with that, and the natto serum. Right? If you just want to go on two supplements, those will be the ones I recommend right off the bat. Okay? So that being said, if you guys have any questions, you can ask them in the chat. If not, and you guys would like a handout of it, just let me know and let me see. Let's see if we could find a very systematic way of giving you the handout. Okay, so this is what you guys do for me. This is what you guys will do for me. I'm going to give you guys our email address. Just send us an email, right? And we will send you over the handout of it. So I have all of the herbs, the entire protocol, and the rundown of what we spoke about tonight so that you can reference it back. Because I know it was a lot of information, a lot to recover, a lot to write down. So just send us an email there and we'll send you over the protocol. It is in the chat. In case you don't see it, it's fitmateam@gmail.com and we'll send you over the information there. And for those of you on the Ivisha Mestin YouTube channel, again, just use that chat and then we'll send you over the information there. So any questions in regards to the fibroids, you can ask it now in the chat. If not, we're going to wrap it up and we're going to prepare for next week. So if you have any questions, let me know if anything was not clear. Just let me know. You can put it in the chat. You can raise your hand. I'll unmute you and then we'll go from there. Okay. So it looks like everything was clear, which is always a good thing. If anything comes up, you can use that same email address. And oh, somebody sent their email. Okay, let me save that for you. So the reason I tell you to email me is because it might be easier if you email me, right? At least I'll know exactly what I'm sending back. It might be tricky for me to take all email addresses here. But as you sent yours, I'll just take that one. But everybody, if you could just email us, that'll be the easiest and fastest way for us to get it to you. All right? Lovely, lovely, lovely. Is the use of sunscreen safe? Very good question. Oh, lovely, man. The questions are not coming. Okay. So, what does sunscreen do? Sunscreen blocks the UV rays, right? Now, we have been taught that the UV rays are bad for you. From what we just saw, the body uses UV rays to create vitamin D3, which goes in the body and does all of the other benefits. So, if you block the vitamin D3, or if you block the UV rays, it means that when the sun hits the body, there is no UV rays, there is no synthesizing of vitamin D3. As a result, everything that depends on D3 gets starved. So the science behind it is that UV rays will block the sun, and if you spend too much time in the sun, it will cause cancer. That is true if you spend too much time in the sun, excessive time in the sun. But then what did I talk about the clothing? If you're wearing clothing that are covering your extremities, then you don't have to worry about being affected negatively by the excess UV rays. So I would not recommend UV rays, personally speaking, because it's like being in the sun without getting the benefit. Right? Just spend the time in the sun based on your, as we mentioned, the different color codes. If you're Caucasian, 15 to 30 minutes. Everybody else, like from me backwards, we spend in 45 to an hour and a half. Right? You can do that accumulated. You don't have to go and spend 45 minutes one shot. You can just do it accumulated throughout the period of time. And if you're not accustomed being in the sun, you will get sunburn initially, but eventually your body will start to adapt to it and you will not have those effects of it. All right? So that is the sunscreen. So sunscreen, yes, definitely you don't want to use sunscreen. What are the symptoms of having fibroids? Okay, so we touched on those briefly earlier. Let me see if I could just pull that up there for you. So some of the symptoms of fibroids. Let me see if I could pull back up that slide for you there quickly and give you that information. Right, symptoms. Increased
let me share the screen so they can answer. You could have the answers there as I mentioned. Right, there they are. So it is increased vaginal discharge, of course, as we mentioned, the different types of fibroids, bleeding after intercourse, pain in the back, pain in the legs and pelvis, pressure on the bladder, blocked urine flow, no symptoms, right? One more thing, how could I forget to mention this? Most persons who have fibroids also have anemia or close to anemia because you're losing so much blood. Tricks of the trade, if you're not diabetic, blackstrap molasses. It sells in Bonadi for those of you in St. Vincent. You're looking for unsulfured blackstrap molasses. It is like a natural sweetener. And when you use it with lemon juice or something with vitamin C so they can be absorbed easier. So blackstrap molasses will help to rebuild your blood levels to to a higher and more normal amount, and then you can get the benefit from there. All right. So if you have fibroids, you should also check your blood. It normally would also be anemic. Make sure that you're getting in your blackstrap molasses. If you're using your greens, make sure that you are steaming them tender so that you will also get the benefit from there. All right. So I just forgot to mention that. Thanks for raising that there. Lovely. Right. The cooking with gas. If a woman have no history of fibroids, would you recommend the nicotine patches to help release spike protein from the COVID vaccine? Okay, this is a very powerful question. This is a webinar I was supposed to do from since forever. So let me give you guys the lay down. Lay down. So this the COVID vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, the Moderna, the AstraZeneca, whatever. This doctor, I will have to let you guys listen to him on this. But anyway, what they have found in these vaccines, let me break it down next way. If you got bite from a king cobra and two other snakes, I can't remember the other snakes, the symptoms that your body react is the exact symptoms that you reacted to when you got the COVID-19 vaccine or the COVID. Now, they have found spike proteins that are similar to the venom of the black king cobra, I can't remember two other snakes, and the effects of the COVID vaccine. However, what they have also found is that nicotine counteracts all of these effects, hands down. Now, keep this in mind. Let me show you guys something. Let me show you how diabolical this is. What is the message? Oh, Dr. Dion is on. Lovely. Hey, Dr. Dion, welcome. What is the message you have been getting from 1980s to now? That nicotine is addictive. Smoking is harmful, nicotine is addictive. Now, smoking is harmful. I 100% agree that. They had these smoking generals or the admins came before Congress and testified under oath that nicotine was not addictive. Smoking is addictive. Why? Because there are 600 plus chemicals in a cigarette that makes you addicted to cigarette. Nicotine, on the other hand, is not addictive. And I'll actually show you the data for that one in a subsequent one. Now, let me go a step further. Now, because of the effects of nicotine, which we just mentioned in terms of the anti-venom and all of the other effects that we mentioned there, they have labeled nicotine being bad from then until now. Why? Because if you think about it, if you're about to unleash a pandemic on the world, and one of the things that would affect the pandemic progressing is a compound called nicotine, you will have to label him as the scapegoat so that everybody avoids him. Now, take this a step further. Which class of people was least affected during the COVID? Smokers. That is counterintuitive because if you're smoking and you have respiratory condition disease, you're supposed to be lit down the fastest. Those were the least affected because they were smoking. Now, this smoking was bad, but the nicotine compound. Now, let me go a step further. Apart from tobacco, do you know anybody who is addicted to eggplant? Do you know anybody who is addicted to tomatoes? Do you know anybody who is addicted to Irish potatoes? All of those have nicotine in them. So if nicotine is addictive, it means that people who eat this will be addicted to them. When they stop eating eggplant, tomatoes, Irish plant, they're supposed to start cold sweating. It never happens. Lastly, if you're addicted to something, would you give you that same something to come off your addiction? If somebody's addicted to cocaine, would they give them cocaine to break the cocaine addiction? Why if somebody's addicted to smoking, they give them nicotine to break the addiction of smoking? Just something to think about. So the point is, nicotine is not addictive. Now, what we have been finding, this is part of the spike protein detox. As I tell people when they come into the store, if you can't get the full spike protein kit, if you could just get one thing, get the nicotine patches or whatever form you want to get, nicotine, gum patches, whatever. The patches tend to work better. because the gum could take some adjusted. It could, you know what I mean? It could, yeah. So the patches, you'll take the patch, you'll stick it on your body, abdomen area, keep it on for 24 hours, run that cycle for 90 days. I have a couple clients on that right now. And what you'd also find, apart from the effects of the vaccine being reversed, you'd also find better pain management. You'd also find in, for example, endometriosis it unblocks the tubes in 30 days, nicotine patches. And I'll send you guys the information so you can actually research it for yourself and actually send you the data that shows that nicotine is not addictive and all that I could validate. I could send it over to you. All right? Cool. Lovely. All right. That is the whole nicotine rant there. If a woman has no history of, right, we mentioned that already. Okay, Dr. Dian mentioned, where can I get the recording of the Zoom? It will be on the Evisham SD channel. Just message us via the email and we'll send it over to you. Dr. Dian mentioned it is important to remember most women with fibroids have no symptoms. By the time the symptoms show up, if fibroids are significant, screening is important, right? Very important point there mentioned by Dr. Dian, right? Now, Dr. Dian also mentioned something I'll just reiterate it. Are the nicotine patches available in SVG? They are not available in the patch form. They are available in the pouch form and you have to stick it. Do me a favor, VP. Take this number, 530-1723. 530-1723. WhatsApp me after. I'll tell you about the nicotine patches. All right, Dr. Dian mentioned something. I just want to reiterate it here. I am all for natural treatments. I'm all for using natural remedies for reversing diseases. However, I've showed you guys some of the pictures of the fibroids. And some of these fibroids, when they reach to certain levels and certain sizes, the time it will take to probably try doing it naturally may be too long because they are causing so much other blockages. So in certain cases where the fibroids are so overgrown, a surgical removal might be the best option in that case. Dr. Dina could also jump in here if you wanna comment on this. Right? A surgical removal might be the best option for removing it. And then you go back to now the methods that we mentioned so that it will not regrow. Because I know people who remove fibroids and they just keep coming back. Because if the tap is still on, if the sig is still unplugged, the fibroids is still going to come back. Right? So I just thought I'll put that in there for you. There are some cases when the fibroids are way too big, and it really would make sense trying to go through just using natural remedies only. You may have to consider using the surgical approach, right? Doc, you could jump in if you want at any point, yeah? But Doc quiet tonight.
Yeah,
Oh, here
no,
she is.
I'm here. Some on my phone, so if the audio is bad, just excuse that. I think it was a great presentation, a lot of information there. Just my 2 cents, though. I think when we have, because what we're doing here is we're stacking, right? So we have several different modalities because we're trying to treat different segments of the pathway. So we have to be careful when we're stacking supplements, the timing of the supplements. And I just wanted to point out something there because you mentioned two things. One of them is DIM, and DIM is a big one, but DIM has to be taken with a fatty meal. That's really important because it actually doesn't get absorbed well if you just take it with a light breakfast, a piece of toast, dinner, and it's not fatty. So you'll really lose the potency of DIM if you're taking it with a light meal. So you really need to do it with a nice big heavy meal. Nattokinase and serrapeptase is the opposite. You need to take enzymes on a completely empty stomach. So I tell people first thing in the morning, that's how I take it. Because remember, it's not just for fibroids. Those help break down plaque, break down clots, lots of different benefits. It breaks down unwanted tissue. So you want to take that first thing in the morning before you eat anything. So I get up and I take it, go about my business for a little bit, and maybe 20, 30 minutes later, you go ahead and you have something to eat or your lemon water or whatever it might be. Or you take it last thing at night. So your last meal should be 6, 7, and let's say 9, 9:30 when you're ready for bed, you go ahead and take the enzymes. Why? Because if you take the enzymes and there's food in your stomach, the enzymes are going to work on the food. They're not going to get into the bloodstream to actually have the effect you're looking for. So, I mean, when you're, again, looking at your supplement listing, it's really important to sit and figure out when you're taking what supplements. And I think the other big one that you mentioned was vitamin D. Absolutely agree. my only caution with vitamin D is remember the fat soluble vitamins are stored in the liver. So you don't want anybody with liver problems taking high doses of vitamin D if they're not sure. So in some cases, I will flip your regime a little bit. And I would say if I think their liver is overwhelmed, and how would I know? I look at people's skin really. That's for me one of the big things that I would pick up if somebody has a liver issue. They really just have horrible skin. So lots of acne, dark spots, light spots, rashes, weird things going on with their skin. Then I would probably start them on the lower dose of vitamin D and work my way up, or I will have them rotate it. So they wouldn't do it daily. I would probably have them do twice weekly or just once a week vitamin D at the high dose, and then rotate up and down. And I like to vary it with the seasons because our body works in natural ways and natural cycles. So vitamin D should always be taken in the daytime because that's when we use it and make it. So you want to take your vitamin D in the morning, high dose, and you want to take higher doses when usually the season is low. So again, we don't have a winter, but we have a period where we have less sunlight, less intense, and that would be the later half in the year, earlier half. So their winter, our rainy season, you would find that, well, no, that's not rainy season, that's dry season. So that season coming on to the end of the year where we don't have that 12-hour sun, 12-hour nighttime. So that is the time I'll use lower doses of vitamin D because you're going to get some. And when you're going into the later, when all, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it's starting to get dark already, that's when you want to go up and you want to take the higher doses of vitamin D at that cycle in the year. And again, matching it also with your cycle because vitamin D also has a lot of benefit when it comes to gut health. So if you're having a cycle with very, very poor gut health, and we went through the female cycle, and we showed people who have, for instance, low progesterone, they would have a lot of gut issues because progesterone is needed to kind of calm that down. That would be a time I want them to hit the higher levels of vitamin D, not the lower levels, right? So watch the supplements. And as you're stacking your supplements, think about why are we using this supplement? What's the whole purpose here when you're building your stack? Because my stack will be different for a 20-year-old with PCOS, right? All the supplements you went through are excellent, top of the notch. I would probably go a little bit higher with the serapeptase. 150, 150,000 units is my minimum. I start there with anybody with a problem. I think if you're using the lower doses like the 40, I mean, that's really maintenance. You're not really doing much at that point. So I would start at like a 150 and go up. I've had people under supervision, of course, use as high as 300,000 units, right? So again, think about why you're using what you're using and think about the timing when you're building your stack. Think about when you're going to take it. So you make it detox tea. When are you going to drink your tea? When are you taking your vitamin D? When are you going to take your enzymes? When do you want to take your magnesium? When do you want to eat your broccoli? When do you want to eat all, so think about how you're doing this stack because that's really, really important. My 2 cents.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dian. Always appreciate having you on these calls. I know we have the PMOS to do, boy. I think I do some studies on that one. So you will tell me when you're ready and available because we're gonna need the backup. So other than that, thank you guys so much. And Dr. Dian might I just add in that this week the person is on here, I would pull them on the spot, but they came into my store and they said to bring back Dr. Dian on the show because when you did that presentation on the woman's health, and for those of you who haven't seen it, just inbox me, I'll send it over to you. They said that it felt like you were speaking to them. Now, I didn't take any, it was actually very informative because she said, and I agree with her. She said, as a man, you don't understand what the woman go through. But when you, Dr. Dian, did the presentation, it was like you were inside their body and speaking to them. She went and invited another family member, and they said the same thing. So we just wanted to just let you know, even Elder Max, big job in church. We just want to let you know we appreciate when you come on here with your medical expertise and you really help to shed a light, bring the female part of it, and help these ladies to really navigate through the hormones. I know menopause is a big one that's coming up, and we look forward to having you on for that one again.
Always happy to be a part. Once I'm available, I will jump on.
All right, no problem. I have to send the greetings from the clients and from the church. So everyone, you guys have yourselves a great night. Thanks again for coming on. We'll make this recording available. It will be on the Evesham Estate Church, and we'll probably do a rebroadcast again later this week. And also remember, if you need the protocol, and the best thing is that if you message me for the protocol, you will get the updates that Dr. Dian just told me. So I'll make sure and put the time in as to when you should take them, what foods you should take them with, the time of the day, the dosages, and so forth. So you got the benefit of having Dr. Dian jump on there. So have yourselves a blessed night. Thanks again for being here. You have yourselves a great week. And we are still deciding what next week will be in terms of presentation. But you will know, we'll send out emails, we'll send out the broadcast, and we'll let you know what the topic is for next week. Until then, God bless